Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the NerdCave. This is Eric and Sound Ronin here, and today's video is going to be about our top 10 anime movies. But before we get into that,
Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys like the background, check out Be the Human. And you can follow us on Instagram at eflash777 and Sound Running. Let's get into it.
alright, so like I said, today's video is going to be our personal top 10 anime movies. And when I said our, I mean that we actually took the time to set up a list between the two of us so it wouldn't be as biased with just one's opinion, right?
And obviously, there would have been ones that we put together on the list. Very painstaking. A lot had to cut, but we had to fit 10 overall that we liked, were good movies, replay value, a lot of factors in this one.
And honestly, it was kind of hard, like having to chop some of them off because there's so much, like so many good movies that you're like, I like it, but is it my top 10? And that's what this list comes to. So let us
Now,
know.
if you guys if you guys make it to the end of the video, we do have some honorable mentions that didn't make it onto the top 10, and you let us know if maybe some should have made it or some should have been cut. Well, definitely let us know in the comments.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and let us know if you agree with the order, with the list, or whatever. Just let us know if we're wrong. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Our number 10 for top 10 is Red Line. We're gonna do a little synopsis of every movie so you guys know which movie, if you haven't seen it, maybe you just like it enough to give it a look. So for Redline, we follow our main character, Sweet JP, who rocks an epic pompadour and an even crazier yellow like Trans Am. He's trying to get into the most popular race in the galaxy, the Red Line. Colorful art style and insanely fast speed racing action.
Yeah, this one definitely has like that feel. You get all the like fast racing action that like they draw it so sleekly, and I think that as a movie it just keeps ramping up, like it just keeps going and going and get more action packed till you get to the end. So this one's it's almost like the whole movie is one solid race, which is a
What I like
pretty cool
about
thing that they
it,
do.
what I really like about it, it's not just the animation, which is really slick, but also the art styles are very like defined edges. Like you see very hard blacks. Like in this picture, you see like the shadows are all black. That's something that's now very common in animation, especially now anime. And I feel like this is such a cool looking movie that it's worth a watch. Like honestly, I don't feel like the plot is that great. It's just very simple, very straightforward, which is good. But sometimes you want, a little more meat. But I feel like the animation and everything just comes together real nice.
Yeah, so that's why we feel it belongs on the top 10.
Yeah, but basically just made it like barely in, right?
it it made it just skated into the from the red line into our just barely.
Yeah. We're not
All
gonna
right.
spoil the end, but yeah. All right. So number 9.
So we have Howl's Moving Castle. So we have a story when a young woman, Sophie Hatter, she is cursed by an old witch, and now she's turned into an older woman. Now her only hope of breaking the spell is finding this young wizard companions in this magical moving castle. Now, this is obviously one of Hayao Miyazaki's movies, classic, I think, with the art style, story, all the character development. I think it's a really, honestly, a classic for any anime watcher, but also a easy anime to start getting into for newcomers. But beautiful movie. I think that's why it kind of broke into the top 10, one of his works.
Yeah, this movie for me was so weird because I remember watching it like a long time ago, and it felt so surreal. Like the fact that they have something like a moving castle that's not normal or not something you usually see in any type of media, right? But also there's this mix of like paintings and like actual animation that works really good. I think that's this is from Studio Ghibli, and if you guys are into anime, you guys know what Studio Ghibli is, and they basically make the most beautiful movies ever. And I'm just gonna give a little spoiler, but you guys are gonna see this studio a couple times in this list because this studio is basically incredible. Like animation style, storyboards, everything is so good and perfectly written that I just feel like this movie is on the top 10. Is number 9. I probably would have put it a little higher, but I agree with being just on the top 10 at least.
Yeah, definitely. So now let's move on to our number 8.
All right, so number eight is a bit of a different one, The Boy and the Beast. It's basically about a young orphan boy named Kyura who was living on the streets, slips into an alternate universe, and finds a world of beasts where he's taken in and raised by a warrior bear, uh, Kumatetsu, and a potential successor of the throne of the Beast Kingdom, who has to choose someone to be his apprentice, and he chooses this boy. And the good thing about this movie is not just the animation, which is incredible. I feel like the story is good, but the relationship between the boy and the beast, funnily enough, it's just so great for me.
Yeah, I think this is a cool uh like a bond, like a father and but yet they're like two different species and two different worlds. And it's like it still brings like a little element of like a martial arts movie
Yeah.
and like a magical realm where he's like still training with him. So I think it's a really good combination. But I actually even saw this in theater and it just like really played well and I would definitely has a great rewatchability value.
Oh, for sure. I actually watched it in theater as well, and then I actually rewatched it when it was on Netflix. When I noticed it was on Netflix, because I feel like this movie has, like you said, has this father son dynamic, but they're then again they're not even the same species. But also you feel like Kumatetsu, which is the bear, he has this thing where he doesn't want to become like a, he doesn't want to take on responsibility, but he just gets crammed into this father-son relationship, and then he just like their personalities are different, but you see how they care for each other, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, it's a really nice story overall. Very heartwarming.
Yeah, and so definitely a recommend for us. Number eight, which is not even a very well-known studio, which definitely take a look at it. So for number seven,
We have Gantz Zero. So here we have a story that starts off that after being murdered in a subway station, Masuro Kato finds himself in a with other people who've recently died and were brought back by a computer named Gantz. They're outfitted with high-tech armor and weapons, and in order to fight an army of monsters in Tokyo and Osaka, are brought back and used. Now, this movie is a pretty intense movie, but we also have not a basic drawn art style. This is more digital, come on, almost 3D rendered model movie. Now, I think this one was really well done with that kind of art style.
yeah,
It's kind of difficult sometimes because it really does lose the kind of cinematic value that you can have with drawn anime. So this one definitely in the top 10 just because it was such a good movie done in that art style. And I think it needs its credit.
yeah, and there's a couple of factors that actually make this be in our list, and it's not just the fact that is like you said, this is a different art style, and you could argue it's not anime. But then again, this is inspired by manga. There is an anime series actually that tells this the beginning of the story, and this one is just like an arc of the story, like forward. You have to read the manga or know about the series to understand what's really happening on the story. But it's super action packed and well animated, and there's some bizarre stuff that you will enjoy, and there's weapons, aliens, and martial arts. These movies, it's definitely action packed and incredible and different. I feel like it's one of my top 10 movies for anime, but also like top 10 animation in general, because they're just it's just so good.
Yeah. I mean, that I believe it's like, since it's written from a manga, it's like the story's well made, and now you bring this kind of animation to it, and it really just brings it home. It's really nice to see.
I agree.
Definitely.
Yeah. So number seven. For number six, we have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. This is an older one, so we kind of had a lot of like maybe putting it in or not. But then again, the story of Nausicaa is far in the future after an apocalyptic conflict has devastated much of the world's ecosystem. The few surviving humans live in scattered, semi-hospitable environments within what has become a toxic jungle. Young Nausicaa lives in the arid Valley of the Wind and can communicate with the massive insects that populate dangerous jungle under the guidance of the pensive veteran warrior Lord Yupa. Nausicaa works to bring peace back to the ravaged planet. What I like about Nausicaa is not just like the whole plot about being like post-apocalyptic and big creatures, but also has this anti-war message and this like even ecological message. You see, it's a green message about like living with things and not just destroying everything. And at the end of the day, I feel like the message of this movie is man kills and nature's good, right?
Yeah, it really and it's really cool to see like the bond that she has with all the creatures because then you see that nature eco thing where how like the humans like destroyed the planet, but yet it could have just been coexisting the whole time and get like more of a movie like Avatar where everything's just like intermingled and everything just lives with each other. Yeah, but this is also definitely a classic. Now we're talking this is an older made movie, so the drawn art style has that classic like kind of tinted feel, which is really nice.
Not just that, like I feel these movies made like traditionally are like pieces of art. Like every frame is basically hand drawn, and you can tell by like this one image that we picked. There's a lot of cross hatching on that on the insect, and I just feel like it's like so well done. I really wish like maybe a studio should do like a classically animated movie again just to see if they can actually do it because there's not a lot of artists that are willing to draw 24 frames per second for a 2 hour movie, right?
Yeah, but I think it's because it takes like a village to create such a beautiful piece of work. It takes that many artists to do it, but it's a really cool thing when they can come together and actually like develop something that amazing.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so number
Yeah.
five.
So we have Cowboy Bebop the movie. So obviously there's tons of fans of the series, but definitely the movie is pretty well known. But for people who don't know, Spike and the crew of his spaceship Bebop, a band of bounty hunters, land on Mars in the year 2071, chasing an enormous cash reward. The four-person team, consisting of the cyborg Jet, fearless Faye Valentine, and the tech expert Edward, are in search of ex-military officer Vincent. The former hero has become a biological terrorist with an arsenal of devastating nanobots that he'll let on Alba City on the night before Halloween if his demands aren't met. Now, this one really cool because definitely one of the best known fight scenes as far as drawn fight scenes. You have spaceships, you have cowboy kind of sense out like outlaw bounty hunters,
Yeah.
you have awesome gunplay and cyborgs. There's nothing that this movie doesn't have.
Yeah,
So it's
and
a pretty good,
yeah,
pretty well
everything
rounded
is good.
one.
Okay, so I'm 100% biased when it comes to Cowboy Bebop. Like I've mentioned before, it's on my top three animes of all time. Maybe the first. I'm not sure because that list changes all the time. But like Cowboy Bebop is so perfect. Like the fluidity of the animation, the music, the fight scenes, everything is so perfect. And don't let this convoluted plot about like a cyber terrorist going around because there's still a lot of moments in the movie that makes you feel like even though there's a big threat, like these guys have their own thing, and you should definitely take a look not just at the movie but watch the whole thing. This is perfectly animated. The guy that animated this show is actually known for animating a lot of fight scenes. They're like super slick, so definitely take a look at that. All right. So number four.
Yeah. Let's move on to let's move on to number four.
All right. So Sword of the Stranger. Funnily enough, the same animator from Cowboy Bebop the movie actually animated Sword of the Stranger. If you guys knew about it, that's why I love this movie. It's basically about a swordsman from a strange land that agrees to take a raggedy boy and his dog to a remote Buddhist temple. He's caught in a struggle between morality, righteousness, and devotion, and fights enemies along his way. So what I like about this movie, it's just a very simple plot, but it's so like so action packed that it's just incredible, like perfectly animated. It feels like very traditional. If you like samurai stuff, this is the perfect movie, right?
Definitely, I think it's in one of the top three, if not like top five, definitely for samurai movies of anime of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, even just samurai in general, it's a really sleek, different fighting style that you don't see a lot of anime that like covers just strictly samurai series. So this one's a really nice one if you want to get into that kind of type of fighting.
And when you say strictly samurai, he really means that, because this movie there's no magic, there's no like jutsu or anything like that. It's just guys with swords fighting, and it's kind of gore-ish as well. There's a lot of blood, and like there's heaviness to every, like when they take the swords out, they're not just like, clashing swords like in every movie. They're actually meant to kill. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, people are dropping.
Hell yeah. Yeah. All right.
So let's move on to number three. So another Hayao Miyazaki classic is Princess Mononoke. So we follow the story of young Ashitaka. He's infected by a curse after an animal attack and after that he seeks for a cure. In his travel, he finds himself in the middle of a war between forest gods and a mining colony. So Ashitaka tries to broker peace between humans, and there's this wolf god, Moro, and his human companion, Princess Mononoke. So they've been bringing wrath down upon the humans, and he comes in between this whole conflict and tries to resolve it. And that's where we have the story branch out. But now, Princess Mononoke is definitely one of the most, I would say, beautiful as far as fantasy style
Yeah.
drawings of like the creatures that they have, of the whole world. They have this like beautiful forest that they have these little spirits around. I think everything is just like, it really takes you to that kind of magical sense, and that like a story should take you to another place, and I think it does really well with that.
Yeah, and I agree with when it comes to fantasy, they do it really well. There's this spirit of the forest creature that comes at some point. It's just so beautifully drawn, and like they're trying to give out a message. There's a very green and like cool message about living with nature and not killing it, but also like there's a lot of duality of what's right and what's wrong, and what's basically coexisting. I just really like this movie because Mononoke has this thing that she's human, but she was raised by the wolf god, and with the wolf her wolf brothers basically. I just feel like this movie has a strong message, but also because there's a lot of grays in it. There's no like black and white. You can basically agree, like argue that each side has some wrongdoings and some good stuff as well.
Yeah, and I think that like even it has really great soundtrack as well. Not only the character development, it has a multiple factors that make it, definitely in the top three already. So along, other than storyline and right off the bat.
Yeah, it's also hand drawn mostly, so love it. Okay,
Yeah.
number two. And for number two, we have a classic, Ghost in the Shell. I think number two for this is definitely right because it's about a cyborg federal agent, Motoko Kusanagi, and her partner. They hunt a mysterious and powerful hacker called the Puppet Master who hacks into the computerized minds of cyborg human hybrids. What I really like about this movie is not just like the animation, it's like really hard. Like every scene is thought in a way that they draw everything so it would transfer message not just from the drawing but actually from the scenes. And what I like about it, like the plot's so deep and has this like psychological, basically a confusion about what's real and what's not. And if you think about it, this movie, the more time that goes by, it just becomes more important because there's a lot of AI talk nowadays, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has the whole concept of like what the neural be and uploading like and replacing parts for like biological, mechanical parts. So it's pretty intense as far as like even like the robots and like how they get torn apart by the bullets. It's like you see everything in this one. It's really great anime for that reason. But we're talking psychologically, like you said, it does bring a big a big question like what is reality, who can control it, and if people start to be able to control it, do we really lose touch with our own reality? It's a really deep movement. I think overall definitely belongs in number two spot.
Yeah, because it's not just animation, it's plot, it's everything. Basic character development for this movie is so strong that it almost feels criminal that they did such a bad job with the live action adaptation of this movie, right?
I think that's unfair because just like it's live action anime. I mean, a lot of times you see it done and it just doesn't work as well as you want it to.
I feel like for me, what they should do is either do it exactly the same or maybe just don't. because sometimes they just ruin what's perfect already. Like this movie is so perfect already, you can have improve it. So yeah, that's the way I see it. All right, so
Exactly.
all right,
Uh,
number one.
all
I
right.
want I want to see the comments and see what you guys think. Number one's gonna be most people that know a little about anime movies would probably already know which one it is. So drum, you know, drum roll right now.
Dr- Drum roll. It would be Akira. Now, we did talk it over for hours, kind of contemplating should it be not, or everyone's like, oh, it's so iconic. But we look over the list again, and we have to agree Akira number one, not only for just the drawing, the art style, it just has even such a strong reference in pop culture over the years, and it's just everyone loves it. It's a cult classic,
Yeah.
and it still holds up to this day, which is amazing, especially how long ago it was made. But
Yeah.
beautiful art style, great story, craziness. But let's get into it for the newcomers. So we follow the story. Kaneda, who's a bike gang leader in Neo Tokyo. So he tries to save his friend Tetsuo from a secret government project. So throughout this whole movie, he battles military, crazy scientists, anti-government activists, other biker gangs, just to save his friend Tetsuo until Tetsuo's supernatural powers suddenly manifest. And we get this whole crazy storyline. Everything just flips the script in one moment, and that's what's so great about the directing of this movie. It's just like you're following this one story, it's going, it's beautiful set up, and then bam, everything just flips, and you're like, oh no, everything just hit the fan, and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah, and this movie, like you said, it's been referenced everywhere. Like this bike shot has been done even in Batman. I think this movie, like art style, is perfect. And this movie is one of those crazy movies that is like super old, but you watch it and it ages super well because it's so well drawn and so well animated. And the plot is incredibly good. And there's this whole relationship between Tetsuo and 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 Canada
Kaneda.
that you actually understand that there's this love hate relationship. Like Tetsuo clearly idolizes Canada, but then also is kind of jealous of him because of how he's like super cool and he's like the coolest member of the gang and he has this bike that was basically just made for him. This movie is perfect. I feel like the plot has a lot of things that for Japanese people might mean a lot more, considering there's a lot of subplots about like atomic explosions and all that, and like nuclear explosions when it comes to Japanese history. That made this movie so much more than it is for like Western cultures, because they had to live with having like explosions like in a city, which that's where there's a Neo Tokyo because of explosion that happens at the beginning of the movie, which is not a spoiler because you'll see it like in the first 2 minutes. But yeah,
But yeah, so that is our 10 guys should made it, but we're gonna move on to our honorable mentions that we think at least should get a view, but didn't quite make it in our top 10.
yeah, definitely this whole list is a seal of approval. Definitely go and watch it if you want to have a good time when it comes to anime movies. Uh, the top 10 is great, and also these 4 movies we really like to be in this list, even if they're not in the top 10. So let's go with the first one. This one is actually a personal favorite. Tekken Kinkrit. It's a tale of a pair of orphans who attempt to prevent the Yakuza and their assorted and violent corrupt allies from taking over the city. So it's basically a gang of kids that are trying to be the owners of the city when it comes to gangs, and they're basically just like some type of parkour kids that they're just crazy, and even some of the Yakuza members see the potentials they have, but then there are some decisions that you actually think that maybe going too far, and then there's a whole aspect of maybe not being the best for a kid to be doing this stuff and not being just a kid, you know?
Yeah, and with this one, such a unique art shape. You don't really see this on a lot of anime series or movies. It's really super unique, very beautiful. It's almost you're watching like paintings, like slides one after another. So this one's really definitely just visually appealing.
Oh, the part you said about paintings. The actually, I read somewhere that the artist who made the backgrounds for this movie actually spent more than 3,000 hours painting the backgrounds because they're like super detailed. So definitely take a look at this movie and not just watch it, but definitely enjoy every frame of it. So, honorable mention number two.
Would be Spirited Away. So we didn't think that putting Spirited Away on a top 10 was, let's just say, it'd be a cliche,
Yeah,
to say the least. We kind of had to hash it out, but we do think it's an honorable mention because it is a great story, very classic. Everyone knows it. I think a lot of people have played it to death, but I still love it as a classic. So it follows this 10-year-old Chihiro and her parents when they're on vacation. They wander into a world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits. So when her parents are turned into giant pigs, she must work in a bathhouse, and which is actually a bathhouse for supernatural beings that take a break from the earthly realm and chill there. And she has to work at the bathhouse in order to free herself and her parents. So it's a really cool story. You get all the supernatural kind of whimsical magic. You get all kinds of different characters and designs that are really cool. But definitely top 10. No honorable mention. Definitely a must watch.
and it is cliche like you said, but then again, this movie up until last year, it was the highest grossing Japanese movie ever. Because this movie not only did really good in Japan, but also I think it was distributed by Disney, which made it a lot bigger than most people that don't even watch anime have probably watched this movie because it's so good. And I think the plot is a lot. There's a lot to the plot that I like the whole greed subplot because there's a lot of like the seven deadly sins like in the movie like there's
References,
yeah
yeah.
there's greed, there's lust, there's like everything. This movie it's just great. I think if you haven't watched it, but most people probably have, definitely sit down and watch it as well. Do a list. Maybe we'll have to do like a list with links where you can watch it like Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever,
Or like
right?
Crunchyroll or wherever it's like actually playing.
Yeah, right. So yeah, definitely watch this one. So for number three, for honorable mentions is Summer Wars. Summer Wars is a really different movie, like you see in this image. It's like about a digital world, but it also follows the life of a young math student, Kenji, who solves a complex equation and inadvertently puts a virtual world called the OZ, or the Oz, like artificial intelligence, in a position to destroy Earth. So this is a mix between where technology is and where technology could be, because there's like a whole world that people are like basically doing like avatars and moving into that world and doing transactions and even working on that world. So I really like this, like the whole plot and the whole, because it's something that could happen if you look at it from a nowadays timeline.
Yeah. And I think it takes a really big dive into like the kind of that like we could be heading towards where there's just one game everyone plays or like one realm and then everyone just chooses their character and it's universal every character like so there's no consoles that are separate, it's just everyone plays this whole game and there's games with it. It's like a whole world at that point. So it's a really cool concept. It's like almost a dot hack sign but more of a Ready Player One kind of feeling.
Yeah, don't at me, but I feel like this movie is better Ready Player One. Like when it comes to the actual movie, right? I haven't read the book, so but like I feel like it is so good, and definitely has a lot of like subplots about family and not like spacing away from family as well. Because when it comes to like virtual reality and video games in general, and if the whole world moves towards that, there's always a chance that you will separate from others. And I feel like maybe because of the whole pandemic, it could be a stronger message if you watch it now for the first time.
Yeah.
All right, so honorable mention number four.
Would be Grave of the Fireflies. So one, a teenager charged with the care of his younger sister Setsuko after an American firebombing during World War II, which separates the two children from their parents. The siblings simply rely completely on each other and struggle against all odds to stay together and stay alive. So this one is definitely a lot darker movie, but still overall in message and just how it's directed and shot, very beautiful, really classic art style, but definitely, definitely deserves a watch. Not top 10 if you're looking for fights, action, definitely strong, bold, and lovable movie.
It is, and it's also very sad. Like the whole aspect of them having to struggle through life is really sad. Like if you think about it, but it's so well written, and there's a lot of like messages about like being with your family and doing everything for them. And this movie, like you said, it's a lot darker. It's from the same studio, from Same Ghibli studio, which is the one for Spirited Away, Mononoke, every movie basically, like very well known anime movie. But the director is now Miyazaki. It's a director from an anime called Heidi, which is like an uplift, happy anime. And I think that he did that, and he was like, maybe I'll do a movie, but it's not as happy. And he goes dark because for Japanese people, World War II was a lot different than it was for Western, for the West. So that's why I feel like there's a strong message to the movie, and I really enjoyed it.
But yeah, guys, so if you think that any other movies should have been on the honorable or the top 10, let us know. But that is our official top 10 list. Let us know what you think, and hopefully, we met some of the actual qualifications for your top 10.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I think this was a fun list. We'll probably do a lot more lists about like maybe anime movies or whatever we feel like. But I think this was a good time because both of these, like all of these movies we've watched and we've enjoyed. And if you guys want to see more recommendations, please let us know in the comments below. Remember to follow our socials on screen right now. And yeah, man. Anything you want to add?
No, and if you guys like the music, don't forget to follow at Be the Human on Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in, guys.
All right. Stay blessed.
Grinding my whole life. Stop that. Grinding my whole life.